The Midrash in Parshas Truma says something very powerful. He says that Midrash Rabbah, Parshas Truma, says that how many commandments were given at Mount Sinai, Har Sinai? They were given 613. How do we know? Because if you take the word Torah, it's the numerical value of 611. So the Midrash asks the obvious question. Okay, 611 is not 613. So why do you say 613? It says because the two first commandments were heard by Hashem at Har Sinai. And therefore those two commandments became part of us. They became one with us. We live it. It's part of us. And therefore, when something happens, when we are in a situation where, let's say in the Holocaust or many other crusades, dangerous thing, Jews were ready to give up their life, right? Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am God, your God, right? Connected to the mitzvah of believing 100% in God, and you should not have any other gods. So we're ready to give up our life, which is connected to those commandments. And therefore, we even though it might appear absent, that someone does look like that person, that Jew who is not religious, it looks like he's not connected to those commandments, but really when it's put in the situation, they are in part of him and he fulfills them automatically. He's ready to give up his life. He believes in God 100% and no other power. So I wanted to share the fact that, do you understand what that means? That means that technically, if we lived all the commandments, we wouldn't need to do them. But what that means is that if you live them, you're doing them already. But it's not like, oh, I have to do this commandment. It's like, I am the commandment. I live it. I experience it. Which makes us understand really that, hey, which commandment do I actually really live? Do I really live and experience put on tefillin? The famous story with the Vilna Gaon that was in the show in his town, and he had his tefillin, and there were all his students there in the yeshiva, and then anti-Semite came and started beating up everybody in the show except the Vilna Gaon. So the next day, people came to Vilna Gaon. The students came. I would understand why they didn't touch you. Said, I'm at tefillin. It says when you wear your tefillin, then the people of the nation are going to see your light, and they're going to be scared, and they're not going to touch you. So next time, they all put their tefillin on. Eventually, the anti-Semites came again, and what happened? They beat up every student except the Vilna Gaon. So again, what happened? They come to Vilna Gaon and say, why we all have to put tefillin? Why did they still beat us up? Said, you don't understand. The mitzvah of tefillin is not just to put tefillin and to just do the action and it's on your head and your heart and you do the mitzvah. The mitzvah of tefillin is to live the message of tefillin. Is to have the message and live the message so that my heart is experiencing what is written in the tefillin and my head is living and thinking the way the tefillin are teaching me how to think. And therefore, I lived that. It was my heart and brain were connected, my soul. And therefore, I was shining, right? And so therefore, we understand that we need to ask ourselves, which commandment is changing me? Which commandment is make me live the commandment, right? Because if we experience the commandment like that, it'll be a whole different thing. It's like, oh, okay, I did you do this mitzvah? Yeah, I did it. Did you bench? What do you even have to ask? Did you bench? I am a bencher. Everything is gratitude. My whole life, you give me something, I thank you right away, as soon as I can. This was the mitzvah to say Birkat Hamazon as soon as possible. Connect to the pleasure. Why do we are so disconnected? We push ourselves to do, I have to go daven, I have to go, do this mitzvah, and I have to give chesed, I have to give tzedakah, You don't have to do anything technically. If you lived it, you will be doing all that. And that's the answer to that famous question, how did Avraham Avinu do all the commandments? He did the 613 commandments. How is that possible? The Torah was not given then. They were only the same in Mitzvos and Noach. So how was he able to do all the commandments? Because he lived it. He was acting, everything that he was doing is as if he had done the 613 commandments every day. Because that was his behavior. Do we behave with our 613 parts of our body? Are every part of our body living like they're supposed to live? Are we living the 613 mitzvah? That brings us to a final thought of the controversial statement of the Ishbitzer Rebbe, who was the Rebbe from the Tzidkas HaTzadik, Rav Tzadok Cohen from Lublin, who Rav Shlomo Carlebach also was a big, always taught from. He says, was one of the last great Hasidic Rebbe. He said that if you are a tzaddik, meaning you do all 613 commandments, if you achieve the level of a tzaddik, then technically you don't need to do the commandments. Why? Because you're doing it naturally. You're living it. You became the being that all 613 commandments push you to be, and therefore, what's happening is that he says, even though that should be the truth, since the tzaddik is a role model and he is supposed to show everybody how to be, and you don't want people to think that the tzaddik, he's so arrogant that he thinks he's a tzaddik and never seen, and so he should still do all the 600 mitzvos out of humility and in order to teach everyone how to do the 600 mitzvot, so they can, learn from him, role model. So this teaches you, in many ways, how far we are from being excited about the mitzvot, but really how close we are. If we just need to learn a bit more about the mitzvot, we just need to learn more about how each mitzvah changed me. Don't do a mitzvah and saying, why did I do this mitzvah? How is this mitzvah teaching me how to be a better person? What has changed in me because of this mitzvah? Am I the same before and after I do this mitzvah? So Bezat Hashem, we should all be zoche to be changed by our mitzvot and become all tzaddikim that live the mitzvahs and don't just have to do the mitzvah. So we should all become tzaddikim. Bezat Hashem.